Hey everybody, welcome to Apes Quest, and today I just got back from watching Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the brand new continuation of the not original trilogy, but the reboot trilogy, I guess you'd call it. The one that started with James Franco, that one, 2011, I think it was. Anyways, this is a continuation of those movies, and I think this movie, I'm just going to say this right up front, I think this movie did a really great job of being both a continuation of that while also being its own thing. You know, it was able to be a self-contained story, the beginning of a brand new trilogy, get you to care about this main ape that we're following, Noah, and also set up some, you know, future things that are probably going to happen. While not being fully reliant on you having seen every, you know, the other three movies, you know, and I think that's gonna work in this movie's favor. People can walk into this one and, you know, they'll explain enough. You know, they mention Caesar, you know, many times about, you know, this movie is very much about his legacy and what he left behind and the way that different groups are using that. You know, of course, we have our main villain in this movie, who is Proximus Caesar, I guess. You know, and so he kind of rules his kingdom. He kidnaps other clans of apes and he, you know, gets them into servitude basically, and he's created this kingdom for himself using Caesar's symbol and his image and his, you know, using his like phrases and stuff, sort of co-opting that stuff in a very, you know, obviously, you know, negative way. And we meet another ape who, you know, he kind of tries to stay more true to Caesar's like real, you know, mercy and, you know, being you know, compassionate and, you know, being, you know, actually liking humans, you know. And so, you know, you just get to see all this kind of you know, different views, how people are taking the legacy of this character from the other trilogy. And it's just a really cool world building type thing they did, because even though we have characters who, you know, are more closely aligned to what Caesar actually believed, the way that they describe things of the past, because this takes place, you know, at least 100 years later, if not more, they're not entirely correct about the way things were, you know, because you got to remember, like, these apes, you know, they're not reading human written words, you know, so they're not reading our books, or at least most of them aren't, and they don't fully know everything unless someone were to explain that to them, and that, you know, that kind of does end up happening at some point. We'll get into that. So, you know, we are kind of beginning, you know, and that's why this works so well as the beginning of a new trilogy, is because we took such a massive jump in time, we're sort of getting a clean slate as far as, like, you know, what do these apes even know about the past? You know, how are they going to misconstrue things? How are they going to misunderstand things? You know, they see images of humans, you know, like they see old billboards or old paintings on walls and stuff, you know, and they're like, oh, humans could do this and the humans could do that, you know? And so, like, they have only a slight understanding of what the reality was. And then we get introduced to some other characters, and this happens, you know, kind of like lightly at first, and it's really not until, I would say, almost the halfway point that we really get introduced to this human girl who, you know, my guess, and we're gonna get into some spoilers here, my guess was going to be that, like, oh, they're, you know, they're redoing the original film, you know, she's going to be an astronaut or something, and she crash landed here and she thinks that this is a different planet. I was incorrect. So they do something, I think, even more interesting, something that definitely could get explored further in sequels that I'm sure they plan on. So basically what it turns out is that she can talk, and she knows things about, like, this bunker that Proximus is trying to get into. She knows that, like, well, this is, you know, a government military installation, and they're never gonna be able to break down this door, but if they get in there eventually, it'll be really dangerous, because there's all kinds of, you know, crazy weaponry that basically he'll become an even more dangerous guy if he gets his hands on all this military grade stuff. And so she convinces our main heroes to help her get in there, and you know, just you can tell that like she's giving them some information to like what's gonna help them and help get their clan free from this guy, but she's not telling them everything because she still has her own goals, you know, her own machinations going on, because you know she's kind of hiding it from our heroes a little bit, but she's like, she is very pro-human, you know, like, and she even talks to another human character who has been, I guess, just given the job as the reader. He just reads books to Proximus and explains things to him, and that's just what this guy does. They don't really get into like where he came from, but maybe they do a little bit. But anyways, he's just another guy who can, you know, he's one of the few humans in the world who can talk, just like her, right? And at this point, you know, you're kind of thinking also like, how many of them are there? Where did they come from? If it's not a spaceship, that means there's got to be a whole crew of humans somewhere out there that somehow have never caught this disease, the thing that is causing some humans to not be able to speak, right? Anyways, so what we basically learn is that like, while she was telling our heroes that like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, we're gonna be able to stop him from using these weapons, we're gonna drown him all in water, and you know, we're gonna shut this whole place down, what she was really after was a satellite communication key disk hard drive thing. She like takes this hard drive off and it says sat something on it, and it's just a satellite thing. And you know, we don't learn this until the very end of the movie, but she ends up going back to a human bunker where a bunch of scientists are there, and they're all like, you know, wearing these hazmat suits, and they plug the thing in, and all their satellites come back online, and they're able to communicate with somebody out there finally, and they're like, whoa, another human, and you know, like the satellites are back online, so now humans can talk to each other. And basically we're setting up this idea that like now humans can kind of, you know, somewhat have some kind of return in the future sequels, right? Now of course I have so many questions, because if this is hundreds of years later and we're only just now getting satellites back on board, you know, like what have these generations of humans who are not sick been doing? You know, I guess like the parents had to have continuously been teaching the next generation all of this stuff, right? How to use these computers and how to do all this science and how to do like, because you know, these are not the humans that were during modern day. Like, these are several generations later, so like, you know, this is the first time they've ever been able to use this satellite. They probably were, you know, taught how to read these books, and their parents probably taught them like, okay, if we ever get this satellite online somehow, here's how you work it, you know. And I guess that's just been their life's mission the whole time, and so she finally gets it done. So now they're back online, and that's really where we leave the humans. As far as Noah's story, you know, this was where the main plot is simplified and it's easy to follow, and it's so self-contained, and it was really nice to have it this way, because he was able to stop Proximus. They have like this whole thing where his father was, you know, the keeper of the birds, and he could like you know, he could like sing the songs to the eagles, and the eagles would listen to him, and so they're like eagle trainers, you know. And so at the end he's able to sing his dad's song for the eagles, and the eagles come and help defeat Proximus. And you know, it was just a really nice moment of him kind of coming into his own and being the new, like, all right, cool, you get to be this for your dad, and you get to take your clan home, and you know, it was just a really cool thing. So we basically leave it in this place where, you know, our human character, who is, what did they call her? Nova. They called her Nova, but I think her name was May or something. They reveal her name really late into the movie. Anyways, so basically we kind of leave it on this place where like they have this uneasy friendship, you know, or at least like a temporary peace, probably, because, you know, for the first time I think in the whole movie, she's like honest with him at the very end, like, look, I don't know if humans and apes can actually coexist, it can actually be friends, but you know, for right now we are, you know. And that's the thing, is because she's still very much like, all these buildings that you're using to build your structures and build your houses in, these are human buildings, These were human ideas. Humans lived here. You know, we were here first, or we, you know, and so it's just that kind of idea where like she's still very pro-human. Obviously, you know, she is a human. So I don't know. This is just a very interesting dynamic to leave things off on, because I can see sequels where these two become enemies, you know, or I can see sequels where these two, you know, like maybe the humans and the apes go to war again, but then they have to try to make peace somehow, you know. So I can see a lot of different directions where this could possibly go, because they're definitely setting up the humans to like become a threat or claim their own territory, and obviously that's not gonna, you know, that's not gonna go along well with some of the apes who've now made these places their homes. And of course, you know, some of this military equipment is probably still around, right? Like something's gonna get fished out of that water. So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, overall, I think this movie did a great job of being self-contained, being able to start a new trilogy on its own without you having to have watched the older movies. But also, if you have watched them and you know everything that Caesar was about, you kind of get this extra context of like, oh, this character is saying these things, but they're not entirely right. They, you know, like, it so kind of adds that extra world building of like, oh, even this person who seems to be mostly right, they don't know the full truth, you know, because how could they, you know? So just, yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I think if you liked the other 8 movies, you'll like this one. I would say this one has more action than those ones sometimes did, but this was definitely a worthy successor, I think. You know, as far as where it could go in the future and setting things up, I really liked this one. It was pretty good ape time. Anyways, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.